Are we good? Sounds like we're good. Let's worship. Good morning and welcome to Fountain Street Church. It was brought to my attention last week that once the service was done, not once did I introduce myself. I even got an email where someone said, "You did such a great job introducing everybody. Maybe next week tell us who you are." So I'm Reverend Christopher Rowe. I have the honor of serving as the acting senior minister here at this beautiful temple of love and cathedral of peace. I use he, him pronouns, and it's my honor to welcome you to this time of hybrid worship. Many of you are with us for our second week of hybrid worship, and many of you are joining us from home. But what you need to understand is that no matter who you are or where you're enjoying this service, no matter whether you're a Fountain Street Church lifer or this is your very first time with us, whether you believe in one God or many gods or no gods at all, no matter who you love or who you're loved by, whether you're listening in the car or just up Fountain Street Church or right here with us, you, each of you and all of you have a place here where love and justice and inclusion and equity are a part of our shared and liberating faith. It is my pleasure to welcome you. It's also my pleasure to welcome our organist this morning, Karen Farmer. You'll hear some beautiful music from her today. And we'll also have my colleague, Reverend Greta Joe, with us. And so, without any further ado, Reverend Greta Joe has some announcements.
Good morning and welcome. As Reverend Christopher said, I'm the Reverend Greta Joe, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the assistant minister here at Fountain Street Church. And it's been a while since we've really been back in this space, and so our beginning announcements are really more of, orientation, if you've chosen to join with us in person this morning. I also want to extend a welcome to those who are joining us virtually, because this is a multi-platform space, sacred shared space together. And so if you're joining us virtually, hi, can you say hi in the chat about where you are? Are you here in Grand Rapids? Are you elsewhere? Are you home? Are you in your car? Hopefully not driving, if that's true. Thank you for being with us. A couple of things that are different about our service here together than if you were joining us 18 months ago, what you might remember. Back at the greeters table in the narthex area where you entered through, there is a prayers and celebrations basket. That is an opportunity for us to share together in life's joys and life's sorrows. Some members of this community might know it as roses and thorns, celebrations, joys, and sorrows. It comes by many names, but the point is the same, that we as a community hold each other together. So if you didn't get an opportunity to fill one out before this service, don't worry. It'll be there every week. It'll also be there after service, and we will check it later. But if you fill it out before service, there's an opportunity for what you share to be lifted up in our communal prayer later in the service. Also, back at that greeters table, you're going to find our offertory plates. Due to our COVID precautions, we are not physically passing a plate, but we invite you on your way out the door and back into the world to take that as an opportunity for an embodied gratitude practice. That you leave your offering in the plate as your last act of community with us in this space. So again, you can find those in the back on your way out. Or, if you're feeling super proactive, you could do it on your way into the sanctuary in the morning too. Again, we ask you to wear your masks properly fitted over your nose and your mouth, and this is about protecting all of us, regardless of vaccination status, regardless of age, regardless of what we bring in or who we are taking care of outside of these walls. We thank you for taking care of each other. Along those same lines, our children and youth programming looks a little different right now. We've converted our social hall into a kid-focused, kid-devoted space. So if there are any youth among us, youth and children, they are invited to be in worship at any time. All ages are welcome here. And if they'd like to be in more youth-focused programming, guardians, parents, caretakers are welcome to walk them over to the social hall and check them in, where there's some all-ages, small group, still distanced and masked activities for them. think that's it for this morning. Thank you for being with us in body, in spirit, through cables, and all the rest.
We have a welcome for you this morning, just for you.
Though we did not know for sure.
We've been hoping to gather
with you, that we would find ourselves here.
In this moment, we have imagined us all.
Letting go of
Grievances, expectations, shock, silos.
the things that keep us stuck,
Lonely.
hoping.
Let go.
We did not build this welcome.
It was given to us, all of us,
Once,
and then over
and
and
over
over
and
and
over.
over.
Built by courage and imagination,
built by faith
given to us until
it was
ours.
ours.
Ours to offer to you.
To all.
Ours to say,
You belong here.
you belong in this moment, on this earth.
In your body,
You belong here.
just as you are.
That love has a claim upon you.
On all of us,
That love calls you forth
love calls all of us.
to a life that we have not yet even imagined.
So let us give thanks
For this welcome,
for this day
we receive them both.
with joy.
Pass it on
Come, let us worship
together.
As we center ourselves for this space of worship, I will invite our gathering music to begin, and as Karen provides that for us, there is a little bit of a note. The gathering music is inspired by hymn 410 in your hymnal, so some of you might find some inspiration from following that in your hymnal. That's 410. Let's prepare for worship. So we're starting something new this year. We're adding more storytelling to our services. And it's a story for the young and the young at heart. It's a story for those who are in the social hall or those who are at home or those who are in this space right now. It's a story time for everyone. And it starts with me telling you I have a little secret. My secret is that I love playgrounds so much. Even as an adult, I will get off the highway if I know there's a cool playground and make my husband or my friends go and say, "You've just got to see this playground. It's really cool. You're never too old for a playground." Well, this is a story about a playground. It's a story about a little girl named Deja in New York City, and it's a real-life, true, non-fiction story, which means it actually happened. And it happened in New York City. It happened in a big, cavernous, tall building kind of neighborhood where there weren't many places for people to play or to gather or to linger. And Deja went to a school that was so tightly packed between tall buildings, there wasn't even a playground for the school. So this was a school that had never had recess before. But right across the street was a dumpy, dirty, disheveled little play lot. Now, the kids weren't allowed to play on it because it had weeds and trash and all kinds of things you don't want to put children out inside, but they had a dream that that could be our playground. Well, there were problems, right? The neighbors next door on either side didn't necessarily want children making noise and getting into trouble, and the school didn't have a dime to spare to build a playground. So Deja and her family and her friends and her classmates and the school and even the neighborhood around it started to raise money. They raised money through bake sales and car washes and any kind of way you can imagine raising money. And after 2 years, can you imagine waiting 2 years? But after 2 years of that, they had enough money to buy the lot and to buy the supplies for the playground. Well, the challenge is it's actually really expensive to build a playground in New York City. The construction is not cheap. There's a lot of other projects going on, and so they had to figure out how they could build this playground on their new land and with their new supplies. So they had a work day. The day finally came where Deja woke up, and she had butterflies in her tummy because she knew it was this day they had all been waiting for. And Deja and her parents walked to the dirt lot, and it was just buzzing with excitement. There, right on the sidewalk, was her friend Mi Ling. And Mi Ling's parents owned a grocery store, and so they actually brought all kinds of bottled water and bottled juices and all kinds of refreshments and healthy fruit to help everybody get started. And then Deja looked over and she saw Dr. Roberts, her dentist. And he was directing people. "Dad, what is Dr. Roberts doing here? He's a dentist. Why is he here?" His dad laughed and said, "Yeah, but he has other gifts too. Today you're going to see all kinds of people helping out in all kinds of ways that you didn't know they could. That's how we're going to get this playground built, Deja." And then as she looked around and saw these other people, she started realizing there were lots of faces she knew. All of a sudden her nose stopped and she said, "What is that smell?" And it was stacks of lumber and it was overwhelming. And then she looked around some more and realized these grown-ups were doing things she couldn't do. They were using saws. They were using all kinds of big tools. They were lifting heavy things. She started to feel deflated. What am I going to do here? And then she heard her voice. "Deja, Deja, we're over here. Come on over here, Deja." And it was Ms. Lopez, the librarian, not from their school, but from the community library down the street. And she was gathering up all kinds of other friends that Deja knew. And as she got over there, Ms. Lopez was like, "Well, come on. We've got to sort screws, count nails, put the hammers aside. There's no way that all these adults can get all this done unless they have exactly the materials they need, and we're the only ones that can do it." So they worked away. And as they worked, she realized there were all kinds of people doing all kinds of things she didn't realize they could offer. She had no idea that Mrs. Briggs, her principal, was such a good painter, or that the local police officer she saw every day was also really good at lifting things into place. And so they worked away and they worked away, and she started to get hungry. And just as she got hungry, a whistle blew from the corner of the playground, and, well, what would be the playground, and it was actually Roberto's dad, who was in a wheelchair, but he also owned a panaderia. and she looked over there. There was a marvelous spread for everybody to have lunch. He couldn't help with the big projects, but he was able to provide lunch. So a few weeks later, the school reopened, and for the first time, they had a playground. For the first time in the school's history. And the neighborhood had a park with benches and quiet spaces to read and rest. And as she ran out on that first playground recess day, she smelled that wood. But it didn't smell quite so strong. It smelled good. It smelled kind of sweet. It smelled like the memories of everyone coming together and bringing their gifts and being welcomed into this project for what they could offer. So she took another breath, and she went and played on that playground for the first time. The end.
Morning. Our ancient wisdom reading this week comes from the poet Rumi, and it was translated by Coleman Barks, called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Good morning. Our contemporary reading is We Are One by Dr. Reverend Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility and being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one.
It was nice to see some dance moves out there just now. That was great. When I first came to work at this congregation, my title was Minister of Belonging and Community Engagement. And I'll be honest, I got a lot of sideways glances over Zoom screens when you would ask me what in the world that meant. And there are many answers, in all honesty, but perhaps the most important one is that in truth, it was an echo of some of my deepest held beliefs, my dearest hopes for this community, too. So by way of introduction and welcome, my name is the Reverend Greta Seidohl, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister, and I am called to the joy and complexity of building resilient and hopeful communities. Because I believe in the power of collective wisdom and our collective spiritual imaginations. Where two or more are gathered, holy things can happen. That holy happening, the holy happening that can happen when we are together, is echoed in our call to worship from Reverend Gretchen Haley today. We did not build this welcome. It was given to us one by one, built by courage and imagination, built by faith, until it was ours to give, to offer. Still gives me shivers, and I've read it a few times. And it points to something that I think is often misunderstood about welcome, and therefore about belonging and inclusion and community. It is both a spiritual gift and a physical act of construction. Welcome is a gift that we give ourselves and to each other. It can and should be a selfless offering that we give out of the deepest love. But before we can give it, we have to build it. Welcome is something that we build, which means we must, as our playground story indicated, find the proper tools and learn to use them. Welcome is a skill that we hone when we value it. Welcome is not something that happens when we aren't paying attention or when we figure that the folks around us will figure it out eventually. Welcome requires us to be attuned in our bodies and our spirits to what is arising between, among, and within us. Welcome is a spiritual act that is based on the belief that everyone, and I mean every single person, is worthy of love and has inherent dignity. And perhaps more importantly, what follows from that is the belief that each of us must be the embodiment of that truth to others. We must prove to each other every day that those we meet are worthy of love and belonging. It sounds nice and simple, maybe a slightly more verbose love your neighbor. But what happens when you'd rather just be me, M-E, than give time, energy, and space to creating and maintaining a we? What about when that neighbor looks different, acts different, has different needs than you? What happens when welcoming another, helping to make another feel comfortable in a shared space, means that you feel slightly less comfortable for a time? Think of it like a house. Okay, better yet, a home for a minute. Imagine that you're hosting a dinner get-together, and you don't know some of the folks who are attending. They're friends of friends who you opened the invitation to. And some of those guests, those unknowns, they have dietary needs or restrictions, allergies that are very different from how you normally cook. You have two options. One, you make food the way you normally do, and they can't eat. Or two, you adjust your normal. You gather new tools, you hone new skills, and you welcome them. Be honest, which one do you choose? I'd like to think that most of you would pick the second option. Because if you pick the first, chances are that those people aren't going to RSVP to your next get-together. They probably aren't going to engage in lively conversation in the living room after dinner, and they certainly will not feel welcomed. So what about a church? What about a congregation like this one, a place that many talk about as home? A place that many people last week when we opened the doors said felt like coming home. Is it our home? Just us? Just those who are here right now? Or just those who were here last week? Just those who were here 18 months ago? Does it belong to both the ancestors whose memories we hold and also the hearts of those who have yet to be welcomed through those doors? If that is so, if we wish to build a welcome that is meant to not only greet yesterday, but tomorrow, then as times change, we must recognize that needs shift, that the status quo doesn't work, and that we have to learn a new recipe together. Because welcome is a skill. Let me take the analogy of a dinner party a bit further. It's actually not that when a newcomer comes through these doors or into our YouTube chat that they're invited to sit at our table for dinner and eat the food we've already prepared. That is one level of welcome, and it has its place. Oh, by the way, if you're new here today, thank you for being here, and I hope that your spirit finds sustenance in this hour together. But there is another evolution in that welcome, where it's not just a dinner party, but a potluck. A potluck where we each bring our gifts, that secret recipe that only we make best. And we also bring our needs, our empty plates, and our hungry spirits, so that we might be filled up by the gifts of others. That we can come to the collective table, our shared sacred space, honoring ourselves and welcoming each other. In college, the college I attended, it's actually just across the big lake in Appleton, Wisconsin, my friends group always preferred the round tables in the cafeteria. It was easier to see each other, to have big collective cross-table discussions rather than the sectioning and siloing that tends to happen at big, long, rectangular tables. And I'm sure that the cafeteria staff really didn't like us, because we would pull a zillion chairs from other tables over to those small, round circles. We had some math nerds in the group, and they developed a bit of an inside joke. Okay, math people, let's hope I get this right. The number of people who could sit at a circle table was equal to n plus 1, where n was the number of people currently at the table. Okay, you laughed. I got the joke right. Yay. In non-math terms, there is always room at the table for another. Because welcome is not a pie. I'm going all in on the food analogies today. It is not a pie that can be evenly and easily divided and then emptied. Welcome is a potluck, where each new person brings the whole of themselves, and they are greeted with gratitude for what they bring, especially if it's different and new. A potluck where everybody brings chips and salsa is maybe not the best potluck. And a space is built where the whole is mightier because of the sum of its parts. So pull up a chair, bring your favorite recipe, and let the group know what ingredients you're missing to make it even better. Let's make a meal together. Let's have a holy communion of connection, because you are welcome here. And you have welcome to give to another. I I hope that idea makes you breathe a little deeper from wherever you sit, even as you realize that I'm not actually posing a simple task. Padraig O'Tuama is a poet and theologian who leads a community in Northern Ireland that has offered refuge and healing since the religious divides and violence that have ravaged that country until the 1998 Good Friday Agreement. He writes of building welcome in that space. Belonging creates and undoes us both. If spirituality does not speak to this power, then it speaks to very little. Belonging creates and undoes us both. Creating a place that lives out true welcome, creating a place of belonging, it will make us. And it will unmake us in the very same breath. And that is a tantalizing beauty. In another interview with Krista Tippett, Padraig O'Tuama said, "Agreement has rarely been the mandate of people who love each other. Maybe on some things, but actually when you look at some people who are lovers and friends, you actually might find they disagree really deeply on some things. But they somehow, I like the phrase, the argument of being alive." Or in Irish, when you talk about trust, there's a beautiful phrase from West Kerry where you say, "You are the place where I stand on the days when my feet are sore." That is soft and kind language, but it is so robust. That is what we can have with each other. End quote. Soft and kind, but robust. The kind of love that true welcome comes from requires us to get clear about who we are as individuals, while making space for the complex truth that is someone else, and the disagreements that inherently and beautifully necessitates. Because welcome is a skill. Because it recognizes that there is both a we and a me, and that a truly welcoming space holds room for both, for the individual needs and the gifts that we create together, prioritizing taking care of each other, and also building a space that takes care of the whole. It also requires that we get really clear about who we mean by we, who we really is, and how we might look different from any individual me. And I'm going to get these words messed up here at some point. Because we is a complicated word. In anti-racism work, specifically the work that I have participated in and led with people who are white, one of the powerful practices that we engage with in breaking down our assumptions is to use I statements. To recognize that the words I and we are not interchangeable, especially in community. That my experience, this me, as a white cis woman, is not the same as many of you. And therefore, I must be careful and even sparing in my use of we. Because it is a powerful word and the start of welcome. And I mean that really literally. You cannot write the word welcome without first writing we. And then, after you write some other letters, then you get to write me. It is contained and held together. We and me together without losing each other. It is a potluck, not a stew. And so to truly welcome, to truly build belonging and work towards inclusion, we must know ourselves. We must know who is me and who is the me sitting next to me. Who is the me down in the other row, the me joining in chat, The me who snuck in the back and will sneak out as soon as I'm done talking. The me who didn't even feel comfortable coming in today or tuning in today. At the risk of getting even more cheesy, because it is all those individual me's that make up the bigger we. Our contemporary witness today came from the Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson. She wrote, "We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. It is a choice to journey together, to make space for another, to travel at a different pace or on a different road than you might have taken by yourself. But those are crucial words. Choose to journey together." Many of these services, Fountain Street, before I came to work here and since, have started with whomever you are, whomever you love. Wherever you are on this life's journey, whatever the color of your skin or your theology, you are welcome here. That is a bold and beautiful statement, and it takes a heck of a lot of work to make true. That welcome is an invitation to build, to learn, to build something wrong, to have it fall apart, and to build it again. And I'm grateful to build with you. I have one final invitation for you, a way that helps make that welcome possible. Many of you sitting in these chairs or joining us virtually are already members of this congregation. You have committed to supporting the work of this congregation and also being supported by it. But maybe you've been coming to this congregation for a while, but you haven't been ready to commit. Or maybe you've always sort of had half of you out the door while the other half of your one ear is listening. Or maybe you've been wounded by organized religion, and saying yes makes your stomach turn, but you keep showing up. Or maybe you've just been waiting for somebody to ask. Well, if it's that last one, here it is. You are welcome here. You belong in this moment, on this earth, in your body. You belong here just as you are, and love has a claim on you, on all of us. And it calls us forth to a life we have not yet even imagined. Will you build it with me? Can we build it? On October 17th, we are having a membership Sunday. If you joined over the course of COVID and you couldn't sign the membership book, we'd like to invite you to participate in service on October 17th and sign our membership book here as part of service. If you'd like to become a member and haven't done that yet, you can. It's actually pretty simple, perhaps the easiest part of this whole building welcome and belonging and community. It starts by reaching out to me and having a conversation. If you are a member, you don't get to stay home or not turn into YouTube on October 17th. You have to show up too, for two reasons. One, to welcome the newcomers and the new members wholeheartedly. And two, to use it as an opportunity to renew your own commitment to this congregation and to each other, so that we might travel together, not by coincidence, not out of habit, but by a holy and embodied choice to welcome, to get to know, to love each other, and to host an absolutely scrumptious potluck. I'll see you there.
As Reverend Greta Joe mentioned earlier, we have a new opportunity for you to express your joys and your concerns as a way of continuing to build this potluck that we so eagerly anticipate together. It is my hope that we can also make that digital and virtual thing, that you can go onto our website this week and start sharing those. They'll be confidential, but I recognize that that's a way for those of you at home who are watching on YouTube and those of you who just forget when you get here on Sunday to still express those things with all of us. As we prepare ourselves for this shared meditation in this space of prayer, I want you to remember that this is a space that, though silent and comforting, is also filled with the wiggles and the giggles, the coughs and those sneezes, because they're a part of life. The space that we share is not about perfection, but rather intention. So friends, free yourself for a moment and find yourself. In my last congregation, we always started the prayer by saying, "You have nowhere else to be but here right now." Find yourself inside your body. Find yourself inside this sacred space. Feel the presence of those around you and within you. And feel the chair that holds you, the ground that supports you, and the womb of life that embraces you. And breathe. And breathe. And breathe. Fill up not only your lungs, but your spirit. Feel the energy of this space enter your body. Let it wash over you. Let it wash over those places that hold pain. Let it wash over those places that you've forgotten to love. And open yourself to the silence. Let it in. And breathe. God of many names and no names at all, source of limitless love and unabiding peace, spirit of life that even time cannot contain. Fill this cathedral of love and this temple of peace, and fill the homes, and fill the cars, and fill the places and the spaces in which we gather with your presence. The presence of fierce love. The presence of radical welcome. The presence of limitless inclusion. And the presence of sacred belonging. In the stillness of this moment and in the presence of our shared liberating faith, we bring our whole selves. And with that, we bring our joys and our sorrows and our fear and our hope and our pain and our faith. We bring the very things that make us complete, complex, messy, and fully whole beings. And with that, we bring the things that we so desperately long for the world to know, and the things that we so desperately hold inside and veiled from the world, all of it, making us whole. This morning, as we bring the whole of ourselves, we do so aware that this is the very space in which our welcome invites us to lay down that wholeness for others to see, for others to affirm, and for others to carry with us together. And so we express our joys and our sours. With Ellen Chamberlain, we celebrate. We hold the space of joy for her new granddaughter, Lucy. With joy, we celebrate one who offers joy for the love that they find here at Fountain Street Church, and another who offers joy for being able to be here again around friends and family. We have others who come with concern. One who asks for prayer for a member of the Fountain Street staff whose family was in a car accident yesterday. Their family is okay, but they still need to be encircled in this space of prayer and concern. And together we hold these joys and concerns, and the joys and concerns that were left unsaid this morning in our hearts. And as we do that, I invite you to take but one last breath with me. Place your hand over your heart or wherever you are comfortable, and breathe. And breathe. Amen. Blessed be.
So, speaking of cultivating welcome and getting to know your neighbor, I'd like to share another announcement with you before we head back out into the world. Over the course of the history of this congregation, Fountain Street has fluctuated in size, in membership, in leadership, in how you connect to one another, just like any other community. And one of the ways that this is made visible in the history of the congregation is through the evolutions, plural, of your Beyond Sundays ministry. Some of you might know it as the Districts program. Some of you might not have any idea what I'm talking about, and that's okay too. And even within the time of the Districts program, it has fluctuated in how many districts there were, what colors or names they went by, all that kind of good stuff that happens when a congregation has been around for as long as Fountain Street. Well, I've got another transition for you. Another evolution that I am excited about, actually. See, the people in this building right now, or joining us online, they come from all over. We don't live in a time anymore where people join the congregation that's just down the block, that's an easy walking distance. We come from all over. We even can come virtually. But we still live in place. We are still embodied beings that, for the most part, have a neighborhood or a part of town that is home. So we're going to do a little exercise, and yes, I'm asking for your participation. Ready? I promise it's not hard. Who lives in the northwest quadrant of Grand Rapids? Look, you all knew what I was talking about. Okay, so here's the thing. When I moved to Grand Rapids, it's always a thing to learn a new city. Everybody kept talking about northwest and southeast, and I was like, okay, you all are not just that good at directions. There's no way that your entire city's that good at directions. And I quickly learned You aren't all that good at directions. Your addresses tell you all of that. It was great. It made learning Grand Rapids really a lot easier than a lot of cities, New York City. And it made it a lot easier to know who my neighbors were, my literal physical neighbors. Okay, so let's do that again. I said Northwest, yeah? Who lives in Northwest? Okay, I want you to take a minute and look around. Keep your hands up so we can see. Do you recognize some of those faces? Maybe you don't. Also, maybe you don't live in geographic where your address literally says Northwest, but if you live northwest of the city, that counts. Okay, let's try another one. How about Southwest? Raise your hands. If you're joining us virtually, can you put in the chat where you're joining from? If you're joining from Southwest Grand Rapids, say hello in the chat. All right, look around, see your Southwest folks. All right, next up, Southeast. Oh, well represented today. Okay, Southeast, look around. See your neighbors. I actually raised my hand for this one. Okay, and that leaves Northeast. Hands up in the chat, look around, read, see who your neighbors are. Awesome. Okay. Wouldn't it be nice to know those neighbors better? Wouldn't it be nice when you needed care or support from your community if it came from your literal neighbors and your spiritual neighbors at the same time? Well, that's what the hope and the dream is for the newest evolution of our Beyond Sundays ministry, which is called Community Corners, based on the fact that our city is divided into a compass with corners. And we've got some great folks who have been working with the Beyond Sundays ministry and who are ready to support this new evolution. And I'd like to invite them up. Can Sharon Collins, Judy Botts, and Louisa McNally find their way up here, please? These three folks have served as district leaders prior to COVID, and in the midst of the pandemic and the closure of this building, suspension of in-person activities, you know the gambit, they've done a wonderful job of checking in on each other, on this congregation, and making sure that people are getting the support they need. And together with staff, they're inviting us into this new time of connection with each other. But, okay, I made a math joke earlier. Can somebody help me with math here? There's a little bit of a math problem. We're missing someone, right? Okay, I've got cute little, help me out here. Who's Southeast? Southeast? Here, okay. Who's Northeast? You're Northeast? You're Southwest, right? Okay. Who's Northwest? No? Okay, fine. Who lives in Northwest? Raise your hands again. Put your name in the chat. Christopher, are you taking notes? Remember that thing I said about building welcome and that it takes all of us? So, if you live in one of the quadrants, the corners of the community that these ladies have offered to support so far, they can't do it by themselves. They need your help. Not only that, they want to know you. We want to know you. To have picnics, to get to know each other's names, to know if you have a dog, and also to be there when you need support. And we need some help doing that in the Northwest District. In the Northwest corner, sorry. Ooh, it's even gonna take me a minute. In the Northwest corner for our community corners. So if you live in the Northwest corner and you are willing to help, I invite you to reach out to me or to one of these fine ladies. I'm gonna say their names again because I know we're all learning each other. Can you wave for me? We've got Sharon Collins, Judy Botts, and Louisa McNally. And I'm Reverend Greta Joe. Thank you for helping us build community and build welcome. Okay, ladies, you can go sit down. Thank you. There's also a big event going on here that could use some volunteers. Is Penny Barstow here today? Penny Barstow is our volunteer coordinator for Art Prize, and if you've lived in Grand Rapids a short time or a long time, you've probably heard about Art Prize, and we are a venue and could use volunteers to help make that possible. If you can help, reach out to Penny Barstow or reach out to the office and we'll get you connected to Penny. Take a deep breath with me. I offer you this benediction from Maureen Killeran. No matter how weak, how frightened you may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected. Each day, act, so you may be a little more whole. Blessed be, until we meet again.